Good morning. Nice to see you all. Thank you for being here. Let's stand and we will do the refuge commitments, starting with the three refuges, and then we will go to the Heart Sutra. And we say together, I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the three jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. And now the Heart Sutra. The Maha Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. The Bodhisattva of great compassion, from the deep practice of Prajna Paramita, perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance, no old age and death, nor extinction of them, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna paramita is the great Dharani, the radiant peerless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna paramita. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. The Maha Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. Thank you. Remain standing and just greet each other, would you please? For those of you who don't know, the Mahaprajna Paramita Hridaya, Heart Sutra, is recited in every Buddhist temple worldwide, at every service. And what it means, the Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra, means the perfection of wisdom sayings. And so this is all about the perfection of wisdom, and it's more about this is what it takes. It takes these realizations to understand, stubborn one today, to understand what the perfection of wisdom means. Now, a couple things before you leave. Last time we were here, which was 4 weeks ago, okay, we had a snow day, and then we had the holidays. I did Lojong training with you, the brief form, and you all requested that I make copies of it and have them available to you. And Karen was kind enough to make those copies. Thank you. I have them all. I didn't get them out, but they're right in my case back here. So please don't leave before you've gotten your copy, because it is such a wonderful meditation. Okay. And I'm going to do an announcement on the front end. Next week, the first 3 preceptors from the White Sands Zen Center will receive their preceptor vows. And I'm excited about it. Makes us feel so much more official, you know, we have preceptors. We have Kim and Karen And Andrew, who lives in Grand Rapids, he will be joining us as our third preceptor. And I need to speak with the two of you after service, but not before I get those Lojong handouts to you. All right. So our discussion for today, excuse me, is on the concepts of rebirth and reincarnation in Buddhism. Very misunderstood, typically, by the lay people or people from other denominations, other faith traditions. And it might come as a surprise to you that in all of his teachings and all of the tens of thousands of pages that have been written about the Buddha's teaching, never once did he mention reincarnation. Okay? Because reincarnation, as we've typically understood it, is the transmigration of a soul from one person or one body to another body after death. And there is no such teaching in Buddhism. In fact, in Buddhism, we don't really even talk about the soul. We do talk about spirit, but we don't talk about soul. And because Buddhism has no deity, and therefore has no one, a being, a divine presence that we are to be entitled to, if not, we go to hell or to heaven, okay, in those traditions. Rebirth is an entirely different thing. Now, since we last met, I experienced the loss of my father. He's 92 years old. He and my mother is 90. She is still alive. They were together in the same assisted living center, and now my mother is there alone, grieving in her ways, okay, as the rest of my family is grieving in their ways. And for my sisters, who all grew up in the same church as I did, and have a very strong faith tradition of God and heaven and hell, they are all rejoicing right now because my father is no longer in pain and in their way of thinking has transcended this body, gone to heaven where there is no pain or suffering. Okay, of course, hell, eternal damnation, which is constant pain and suffering. Now, one of the most fundamental doctrines of Buddhism is anatta or anatman, which means no soul, no self, as we generally understand the self. We all have a concept of self, right? This is myself. Okay, that's Kim's self. But there is no permanent essence of an individual self that survives death. This doesn't happen. So therefore, Buddhism does not believe in reincarnation in the traditional sense, such as the way it is understood in Hinduism. Hinduism believes strongly in reincarnation. Okay, the common faith traditions we find here in West Michigan along the lake shore, some believe in reincarnation, some don't. Most believe that there is no reincarnation. There is simply heaven or hell after death. However, Buddhists often speak of rebirth. So, if there is no soul or permanent self, what then is being reborn? Now, first of all, we have to talk about the Buddha's teachings regarding the self. The Buddha taught that what we think of as a self, our ego, Self-consciousness and personality is simply a perception, an illusion, a delusion of the skandhas. Or more specifically, this is what the skandhas are. Our mind, okay? And in the morning bell chant, which we don't do here, but we did in Grand Rapids every Sunday, there is a line that clearly states, everything is created by mind alone, including this perception we have of self. Okay? So our bodies, physical and emotional sensations, conceptualizations, ideas, beliefs, and consciousness, those are the skandhas. They work together to create an illusion of a permanent, distinctive me, which is an illusion. Now the Buddha did say, he was talking to his disciples, "O bhikkhus, every moment you are born, decay, and die." He meant that in every moment, this is translated generally, that in every moment the illusion of me renews itself because of the skandhas. Not only is nothing carried over from one life to the next, there is nothing that is carried over from one moment to the next. You are very different perceptions of yourself sitting here right now than when you walked through the door this morning. Because everything is in a change, a state of constant change. Now, for clarification, that is not to say that we do not exist, but there is no permanent, unchanging me. But rather, we are redefined in every moment by shifting impermanent conditions and the decisions we make in each moment, which result, of course, as we've talked about, in karma. There is a karmic consequence, either a positive karmic consequence or a negative karmic consequence, sometimes a neutral karmic consequence, but always a karmic consequence for every decision we make in this very moment. Suffering and dissatisfaction occur when we cling to the desire for an unchanging and permanent self. That is not only impossible, it is illusory. It's an illusion. It's an illusion. If we want to be released from that suffering, it's quite simple, actually. We have to let go from the clinging to that illusion that there is such a thing as a permanent, unchanging self. These ideas form the core of the three marks of existence. Anicca, which is impermanence, dukkha, which is suffering, and anatta, which is egolessness. The Buddha taught that all phenomena, including beings, are in a constant state of flux, always becoming, always dying, and that the refusal to accept that truth, especially the illusion of ego, leads to our suffering. Which brings us to the question, well, what is reborn if it is not the self? And we as Buddhists say that we believe in rebirth rather than reincarnation. Here's a quote from an article I read. "If we understand in this life we can continue without a permanent, unchanging substance like self or soul, why can't we understand that those forces themselves can continue without a self or soul behind them after the non-functioning or death of a body?" You see, when the physical body is no more capable of functioning, energies that accompany our body do not die with it, but continue to take some other shape or form, which we call another life. Physical and mental energies which constitute the so-called being have the power to take a new form and grow gradually and gather force to the full extent of the capabilities of whatever form that they take. It is those energies that we refer to as essence. And all matter returns to the source, that essence. When I do a wedding, whether it be a Christian wedding or a Buddhist wedding, I make sure that the bride and groom know on the front end, I do not refer to God in the ceremony. What I do refer to is the divine essence that flows within, between, and beyond every one of us as we live out this life. It flows beyond each one of us and all other animals, plants, minerals, the earth, the sky, the oceans, and beyond the universes themselves. This is why we refer to it as the universal essence. It always has been, it always will be, which means you always have been and always will be in some form. I like to think that somewhere along the way I was a speck of stardust, just traveling through the universes, taking in everything, being a tiny speck of the all, of the universal presence, the universal essence. The physicist and philosopher Schrödinger, some of you may be familiar with his work. Probably not if you really weren't into physics or philosophy. You know, we've talked in here before about the law of physics, the basic law of physics regarding matter. Matter can neither be created nor destroyed. That is a universal physics reality. Well, if it can't be created or destroyed, what happens? It can be transformed. Well, from what into what? From the universal essence into anything. A lot of that would depend on the karma that we have accumulated or not accumulated at the point this body is no longer capable of functioning, at the point of death. Anyway, Schrödinger went as far to say there is only one essence. One essence. and it moves among everything that is and everything that isn't. I like the way that he phrases that, because universal means universal throughout the universes, and that's what we call our inherent Buddha nature, coming to realize that. We all have Buddha nature. Okay? Some people realize that and act on it. Other people realize it and don't act on it. Some people, most people, don't realize it. Since our essence is the only permanent aspect of all things, including what we refer to as the self, it is that essence that will return to something else and live on, even if it is that tiny bit of stardust, a rainbow, a deer, a tree, another human form. Right behind where I live is the Grand Haven Cemetery. It's a very, very large cemetery. I can't tell you the number of times I've gotten lost in that cemetery and had to ask for directions. But sometimes the only things to ask in the cemetery were the deer that gather there. There might be 3, there might be 6, there might be 15. And as I walk down the path, I just take pause and I marvel at them, understanding that they have the same universal essence as do I. Sometimes if I get tired, I'll sit on a tombstone. That may seem sacrilegious to some of you, but it's just a stone. And there is a decaying body somewhere under there. Okay, but I marvel at the decaying bodies. I did one of the videos I've been doing lately called Monk on the Move from that cemetery, and talked about the impermanence and changing nature of all things. That essence that we've been talking about has been, and always will be, in its current form, you. When you pass from this earth, your body will decay. It may become, some states have now legalized composting of deceased bodies. I think that's wonderful, because then they get to go in the soil and become nutrients for other living things. Which have their own essence. So in that form, death takes upon new life because of the essence. Please understand, you don't just have that essence. You are that essence. You will always be that essence, long beyond when your body stops functioning. The essence is you. Thank you. Now I want to open it up for discussion. This is a great topic for discussion. What are your thoughts? Yes?
If you were a speck of stardust, where did you leave the pirate engine there?
Oh, I have no idea, Karen. The speck of stardust would had to have connected with something else, connected with something else, connected with something else, And then I've always believed, and Karen knows this, that in some previous life I was a pirate. Okay, and my friends keep sending me pirate jokes. One I got from one of my former bicycle club friends the other day was, to err is human, to R is pirate. Then there's another one, some days I try to pretend to be normal, but then it just gets too hard and I go back to being a pirate. Who knows what we all were? We don't. I don't. The Buddha is said to have been able to recollect 8 of his previous lives. I had a client one time who his wife wanted to go see an applied kinesiologist. I didn't even know what that was. Okay, down in Indiana. And he said, I'd like to pay you to go down there and just check this person out. Okay, sounds like a hoot to me. And she did a lot of work with my hands and told me things about myself that, they rang true. Some rang unpleasantly true. Then I asked the question, do you ever do any previous life work? And she hesitated, she looked down, and then she looked at me and said, only when I'm directly asked. I said, I'm directly asking. And I took copious notes. I still have them. This was probably 25, 30 years ago now, somewhere. But she did more work with my hands, and she told me about 8 of my previous lives. The interesting thing was, you ladies will appreciate this, each one of my previous 8 lives that she talked about, I was a woman, sometimes a child. And in each one of those lives, that life ended tragically somehow. I was an infant in China that was thrown into the river by my father because females were not valued in the culture, and so on. I found it very fascinating. And it wasn't until I fully became involved in Buddhism that I even began to question rebirth. I had always questioned the heaven or hell thing and the one deity that is to be worshipped by the book. Okay, I questioned that all the while I grew up in the church, and even when I became a pastor of that denomination, the questions never went away. So that's what makes me appreciate even more than ever the concept of the universal essence that we all share. Yes, Carolyn.
So, I was raised Catholic, and many of my family members have become born-again Christians.
Mm-hmm.
But I have never been able to accept their beliefs, and I get judged for that.
Oh, yes.
It pushes me even further away.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. I have a niece-in-law. She's married to one of my favorite nephews, and she has this a really cool ability to know things that has happened to me that there's no way she could possibly know.
Mm-hmm.
And it just comes out of her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, somebody used to call you Susie Q. And like, that was my aunt. And Dar didn't know her,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and Andy wasn't old enough to remember that. So that's just one example.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of my family looks down on that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think it's okay. So I just keep going my own my own way, try not to judge them. But If I said out loud, I don't believe in heaven and hell, oh my gosh, they'd all be down on their knees praying for me.
Oh yeah, you'd be on a bobsled to hell if you said that.
Yeah.
Okay, in their minds. Okay, and is it your niece?
Niece-in-law.
Niece-in-law. Your niece-in-law, you see, we have to remember, she has the same essence you do. Okay? And there's something in her who is fine-tuned to the essence that you both share. And that's why we know things about each other. I'm sure you've all experienced this. There are some people that you don't even know, but you feel automatically drawn to. Why is that? Why is that? It's because something inside of you is connecting with something inside of them. There are some people that you encounter that you don't even know, that you are immediately repelled from. Like magnets when you're trying to put the two negative ends together. You know what do? They push apart. Okay? And I just simply call that a disruption in the force. Okay? There's something in your essence and their essence that in a previous configuration has not done well, has not meshed. I reposted a post from today. I'm going to see if I can bring it up very quickly. I wish I was more savvy about how to do this. Here it is. This is for you, Carolyn. What the herd hates the most is the one who thinks differently. It is not so much the opinion itself as the audacity of wanting to think for themselves, something they do not know how to do. Arthur Schopenhauer. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm stubborn enough that I continue to think for myself.
Those are the people who haven't figured out how to think for themselves, typically because it's easier to follow the herd. My pet name for those are sheeple. They're not people, they're sheeple. They're following the flock, wherever the flock goes. Okay? One of my other friends sent me a picture of a flock of sheep. In the middle of the flock of sheep was one black one. And all they said was, "You." Okay? Yes, yes. And I've had a complaint about our public education system ever since I taught college. And Morgan, you've probably, being a college professor historically, have run into this as well. Our public education has failed the students in their inability to teach children how to think critically. Because critical thinkers are much more difficult to handle. Truly, they are. Much more difficult to handle because they question everything. Okay?
I learned that in nursing school.
Ah, yes, nursing school, yes. And I mean, those of you who have ever had a 4-year-old understand this. Okay, this is the way it goes. But why? Well, because I said so. But why? Right? Any of you ever gotten that from your child? Yes.
It carries into adolescence too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, in adolescence, they take a different path. It's like, screw that, I'm going my own way, right? Yeah, yeah. If I don't get a good reason why, then I'm going to do my own thing. Yes, very much so. But critical thinking skills are so important, especially in a faith walk such as Buddhism. We have to question. Now, when I have personal Buddhist students and they ask me a question, as my teacher before me, I'm very well known for not answering their questions. I'll simply ask them another question. And then I'll ask them another question. Then I'll ask them another question. And if they still don't come up with an answer, I might suggest one or two things, but I still won't answer their question. I'll say, now take that information and go sit with it for a while. And most of the time, they'll come back to me and say, now I understand.
A good way to end is, I always say to my patients, why do you ask that?
That's a good one. I like that. Why do you ask that?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're really asking an explanation.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Or what I used to ask my parents is, tell me what part of your body that question is coming from. Yes, Karen.
Kind of taking, just because I've
Go
got
ahead.
questions,
Yes.
I do always with this stuff particularly. So I listened to everything that you said, and it's like I agree with everything, but then I still have all these other questions.
Mhm.
And one is like, so now if folks that have died, return to essence, can this essence still communicate, so to speak, with me, in this? So for example, my father died, he was cremated, I was in the middle of moving, things were disorganized, I had put his ashes in a drawer out in a garage that we were renting, it was just kind of, and it finally was time that we were going to get together to disperse and my sister had met, we all had some ashes, and I couldn't find them, and it was like the night before, and I was starting to panic, and I just sat down and, kind of just put out, I was basically talking to my dad, just saying, look, my mom's going to kill me if I, don't have your ashes when we meet tomorrow, and can you help me out? And I stood up and went to a location and found them. Okay? Don't know then, is that, just my inner, just having a moment of meditation, so to speak? Was it, it feels like, so I like to personalize things. It feels like him, and helping me out. Or a friend died, and I was, and the daughter has schizophrenia, and I was wondering how to best help this daughter, who now doesn't have a mother, and actually felt like I saw, in a shadowy way, I saw my friend, and we were walking together on a golf course, and she very simply said what she would hope, that I would do, and it was made sense, it satisfied me, so I have trouble with the idea, of letting go of this concept, because it feels, it's like it just feels very real to me. And I do understand, that I would have a desire, a craving, to have this, that it's like I kind of understand, the Buddhist tenets, on all that, as far as even the fact that there isn't consciousness, you know what I mean? Which, feels like there is, but there isn't. So it's, I don't know if there was a question in there.
Let me stop you right there. There is a consciousness. It's part of the essence.
Okay.
You've always had it. It's not part of the self.
Okay.
It's part of the essence. Now, a couple things. In Buddhism, there is something, when a person passes, we call bardo. It's included in the funeral service, but in the bardo period, it's a period of 49 days when, and I don't know the reasoning behind this, but the Buddhists believe that people still alive can communicate with the essence of the individual, whatever it is, before, and they can receive that message before it disperses into the universal essence. Okay, now back to your father and back to your friend who died. Is the essence within you any different than the essence within them?
No.
Okay, then why would there not be a connection?
Well, maybe trying to answer with the bardo thing, like, well, so what happens after 49 days? Why wouldn't that connection still...
Because the essence disperses into the everywhere. It's transitioning from body into the everywhere, the all. And the Buddhists just believe that for 49 days it has not completed its transition, therefore they can hear us. It can't respond, but they can hear us. But that essence, the only answer, Karen, I think I can give you is that, you weren't seeing ghosts, you weren't hearing ghosts, okay, that there was a connection with the essence you share on a very important topic. One, the ashes. Two, the schizophrenic daughter. Okay, that you had a close enough connection with your father and that woman, okay, that the answer was already inside of you and it was exposed through the universal essence. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Kind of, okay. Okay, we'll leave it at kind of. Yes,
49
Morgan.
days, I took a workshop on the bardo.
Mm-hmm.
And 49 days is very interesting. Thich Nhat Hanh's body was not cremated for 49 days.
Mhm.
That's why it took so long. In that 49 days, Tibetan Buddhism, we're looking at the body-defined the rebirth. And there's different realms that you might explore in that 49 days. But you have to be careful going into that realm because you have to stop and figure out, well, is this a dog I'm going to go into? Is it a plant I'm going to go into? All right? And it takes 49 days to find another essence, according to the traditional bardo. So you just don't jump into another body.
Yeah, it wouldn't be essence, would it? It would be a body or a thing.
But of who you are.
Yes,
The essence of who you are.
but that is a universal essence
Right.
of
So
who we
that's
all,
what I'm
we
saying.
we
You
all
go
are.
in a lot of different directions.
Mhm.
Okay. The other thing is that particularly with, and I'm thinking of the rebirth. Roshi Joan Halifax is the abbot of Upai. And she showed a movie once, a video, of in Tibetan Buddhism, a certain branch, they take the body, they cut it up into pieces, and they take it into the mountains. And there's a certain area where these vultures live. And Roshi Joan visited this area. And the vultures come in and they eat the meat, the skin, the flesh, the muscle, the organs off of the bodies. And she said it was really a traumatic for her experience. Then the birds fly away, defecate into the soil. And then the worms or another creature, the plants, pick up the food, right? And ingest that. And then maybe a fox eats the bird, okay, or to that effect. So it's always ongoing. And dealing with my own death, coming up, I'm 76 years old, and I've worked through that. And I keep going, am I an atheist? And I come back to, yes, I am, because I do not believe that there is a God. I think God is within each of us here. But also the fear of clinging to something that's comfortable. I think the traditional burying in a casket is the human being's lack of comfort in saying, I'm dead. But we want to preserve that body. We want to keep it going so people can come and visit in memory. My afterlife is with my children and my DNA. Okay. And the last person that ever says my name, no matter in friendships, I'm no longer existing. Nobody knows 100 years from now who the heck was mourning. Our relatives, I visit my father's grave and my mother's grave and my great-grandfather's grave, but I don't go see my great-great-grandfather. They don't even live in this country. They're forgotten. So I deal with that because I'm not going to cling to mystic types of ideas. This is me speaking. I'm not telling anybody here to think that way. But I can accept that. When I'm dead, I'm dead. But parts of me live on through genetically, through memory. I've, written articles that got a book. That will carry on. Sometimes Michael, my son Michael, professor at MSU, he'll be looking up something that he has written, and he runs across my name as a reference. That's good for my ego, right? And in 100 years from now, my name will be there, but it's in a book. So I live within that book. No one ever authenticates my life, and maybe they open up the book. Who is this character? So I resolve that in myself. It's my wanting to live on. I think that I project then onto other people saying, it's their uncertainty or our clinging to things that make us comfortable. We don't want to die. We want to live on in some way to be remembered. That's a part of ego.
Excuse me.
The seminar that you went to on the essence and going on, and you said 49 days.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful where you go. Do you get to pick and choose, or does your karma choose for
Well,
you?
it doesn't really clarify that, but in my reading of the Bardo, your soul is going around, okay, and that's where they say you need to be careful. You get to choose here up to the point of actually intercourse and seeing your prospective parents making you at that point in time. Now, I don't accept, that's just me now, accept all that. Right? So I find something that I can live with until I'm no longer here, then I don't have to worry about it anymore. Do I worry about it? Sure, I don't want to kick off that. Okay? But I have to live with it. And some people, I believe my sister said to Mom just a couple weeks ago, we were talking about my mother, and she says, you still don't believe in God? And I said, no. But I said, if you do, and that makes you comfortable, please continue on. I don't know anything. Just telling you what makes me comfortable.
And that's basically what you were saying, Carolyn, is that I know what I'm comfortable with. I know what I'm uncomfortable with, and even though it goes against the herd, I choose to go with what feels right to me.
And my task to calm down about it. Accept it
Mhm.
and be confident in, if I make a reply, usually I don't make a reply, but I'm upset.
Mhm.
And I don't like that brother of mine that, he's judged me my whole entire life.
Mhm.
And that is my challenge.
And that's clinging, clinging to the anger, clinging to the frustration, that other people don't see things your way, clinging to the expectation that somehow they woulda, coulda, shoulda seen things your way. And the way I deal with that is, like you, I don't respond. I say in my mind, may you be well on your journey. Wherever it takes you, may you be well on your journey.
Carolyn, I have a comment for you with your brother. If this is what he's judging you on, if he did not have this, he'd find something else. Because those that are going to judge you are going to find something that they feel secure in, that they're going to be able to judge you for.
Yes, he is 7 years older than I, and I was a bit of a wild child.
That doesn't make you bad.
Well, I felt that way. Yes, I know. But he would find things out and go straight to my mother, and I would be in huge trouble.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like he liked it.
Mhm.
Well, of course he did, because he got the attention. But you just have to understand, inside you, that's his problem.
Yeah.
You just
I
have
get
to
it.
smile and say.
We love each other a lot. It's not that.
Has nothing to do with love.
Right.
Nothing to do with love.
I have another really quick question.
Yes.
Circling back to my niece and that whole thing. It's that she is hearing someone say things, like we were standing around in the kitchen, and let me back up. My dad had a terrible heart condition, and that's what he died from. But prior to that, he popped nitroglycerin every time he had to walk from here to there. Well, he was notorious for running out of gas. And I was always writing him about it. Like, don't run out of gas. You can't walk. And we joked about it and stuff. So my niece-in-law, when we were standing around the kitchen, she was way across the room, and she said, Carolyn, what was the thing about you and your dad and him running out of gas? He's laughing about it.
Mhm.
So how do I explain that? Is it because of the essence that we...
Yes.
Okay.
And who do you need to explain it to?
I don't, to myself.
Yeah,
But
basically that's it.
yeah.
And the other thing is just to cherish that connection, because that's a gift.
I do.
Such a gift. Yes.
Absolutely no way she could have known that.
Such a gift. Okay, any other questions before we close?
Just a comment, when we talk about consequences, we talk about karma, and I'll speak from Morgan's point of view, all right? Karma is a verb, and the consequence is a verb, because nothing changes, nothing is the same, it changes. So my behavior changes as a result of the consequences. And a lot of people, I was talking to a superintendent of schools a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about karma. He said, what's a noun? It's a thing. I said, no, it's not. It's an action verb. It's what you do with the new knowledge with those consequences. It's a behavior, it's a thought that carries on. So I have to find a path, and I found this in Buddhism, that I'm comfortable walking on. Now, as I think I shared with this group, my buddy and I went to a friend's funeral, his mom's funeral, and he said to the corpse, we're standing together at the casket, he said, well, Mrs. Boyles, I'll see you in heaven. And I know this guy since I was in 3rd grade. I said, yeah, if you get there. And he said, I'm not taking a chance. Right? So clinging to that chance that there is a heaven. My heaven is standing right now at that casket looking at that body and saying, how do I choose to respect that person and carry on that memory of that person?
Yeah, that's what Buddhism calls to me.
Pardon?
That's why Buddhism calls
Yes.
me.
And Buddhism is so focused on personal responsibility that I've been known to tell people it doesn't matter if there's a heaven or a hell. I'm going to live my life in such a way that it doesn't matter.
Because of an ethical path.
Exactly. Because Buddhism is an ethical path. It requires, if you, I've brought up the Noble Eightfold Path, and I can give you a handout that I have on the 17 basic tenets of Buddhism, which is the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, and the 5 precepts before you leave today, along with Lojong, don't let me forget that, and which will show you how much personal responsibility we each actually have to walk this path, if we're going to walk it in the way that the Buddha intended. Thank you all for being here. I want to remind you, next week, 3 of our members received the 5 precepts. And if you want to invite friends or other family members to take part in that or witness that, I certainly invite that. And Kim and Karen, if you have family members you'd like, there are 2 of our preceptors. If you'd like to invite other people, friends or family, please feel free, because this is a celebration of formalizing your relationship with Buddhism. And I'm grateful for all of you. Thank you for being here today, and we'll see you next week.